Hey everybody, it is time for math today. So, I want you to think about tenths. The tenths place, the one right after the decimal. What are tenths? How could you explain that? In your own words, how could you explain tenths? I want you to pause the video and try and figure out how would you explain tenths to somebody who didn't know what a tenth was. Okay, so you should be back right now. So a tenth, that means that you have a whole and it is split into 10 equal parts. So you have a whole pizza and you have 10 slices of pizza. So 1/10 is just one of those slices, and 2/10 is just two of those slices, and 3/10 is three of those slices. So we are going to start our math time off by watching this video together.
Visit numberrock.com for ad-free videos, lesson materials, and more.
If you split the number 1 into 10 parts, that's where the decimal place value start. The values as a 1, they're quite small, like 0.1, which is a decimal, y'all. This number as a fraction is 1 over 10, and 0.1 is its decimal equivalent. Fractions over 10, 100, 1,000, and none are all decimal numbers. It's a phenomenon. Decimals are fractions, just with different names. They each have a value that's exactly the same. Whole numbers to the left, decimals to the right. They get smaller and smaller till they're barely inside. Like whole numbers can get big, decimals can get small. If you know place value, you can imagine them all. On a place value chart, you see a pattern starts. If you split 1/10 into 10 equal parts, this new value is 100. Then in every case, 100 hundredths equals 1 over the ones place. And if you split just 100 into 10 parts, that's the next place on the place value chart. This value is 1,000. That's the number 1. Like every decimal, it's a special fraction. When the denominator is a power of 10, that fraction can be written as its decimal equivalent. Whole numbers to the left, decimals to the right. They get smaller and smaller till they're barely inside. Like whole numbers can get big, decimals can get small. If you know place value, you can imagine them all.
We got the tenths, the hundreds, the thousands, and more. Let's imagine a number line to further explore. You see, there's a special line between 0 and 1 where you find decimal numbers, and every fraction between 0 and 1 make 10 intervals. These are tenths written as fractions or decimals. When counting by tenths, after you get to 9, use the 10 makes one hole on the number line. Let's see what happens as the place value decreases, and 1/10 is divided into 10 equal pieces. We get 100 written as 0.01, and 10 of these make a 10, but we're not done. Split 100 into 10 parts, and we'll get 1,000. The smallest value we've seen yet. 10,000 makes 100. 100 makes 1/10. 1,000 thousands makes one whole. Isn't it brilliant?
Whole numbers to the left, decimals to the right. They get smaller and smaller till they're barely inside. Like whole numbers can get big, decimals can get small. If you know place value, you can imagine them all.
All right, so just like that video just said, I'm going to show you something. Okay, so just like that video just said, so here's our decimal. As we go this way on the number or on the place value chart, we know that our number is getting bigger. And when we go this way, our number is getting smaller because you get like 1/10 of a pizza or 2/10 of a pizza. That's not a whole pizza. That's only part of a pizza. So before we get started with discussing how to represent these as models, I want to look at something that y'all struggled with the other day, which is totally understandable, on our worksheet. So, I want to look at the decimal 3/10 and 13/100. So any time you have one number in the tenths place, you have to add a placeholder right here. You have to add a 0. It does not change the value of that number. It's still going to be 3/10. I could add a million zeros and it's still going to be 3/10 because the zeros don't matter if they're at the very end of the number after the decimal. So if you look at it now, you can easily tell that 30 and 13, well, you know that 30 is the bigger number, so you know that that one is greater. A lot of you were saying, well, Miss Simpson, 13 is most definitely bigger because 13 is bigger than 3. But remember, just remember, when you have one place, one digit behind the decimal point, you need to add a placeholder right here so that you can see the difference more clearly. And then you can draw your 2 dots to the big number, 1 dot to the small number, and you can connect the dots. Okay, I want to look at these numbers. Well, like I said, if you have one digit behind the decimal point, you need to add a 0 so that you have a placeholder. 0.6 or 6/10, that is the same as this. I can have a million zeros after this 6, and it would not change the value of it at all. I know, crazy, right? But that's how decimals work. It's not changing the value of it right now. So if I add my placeholder so I can get a visual, I know that they are equal to each other because they're exactly the same. So that's something that I noticed on your worksheet from the other day that you were struggling with. So please, 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 please make sure that you are adding that 0 placeholder because that's going to help you so much. Okay, so I want to look at this grid. How many parts is that split up into? How many parts? Just one of these split into. Well, you should have paused the video. If you didn't, pause the video and count how many parts. But we're going to count them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they split this whole entire square into 10 equal parts. The whole square. So the whole square is just 1, right? We can even add a decimal and a 0 if we want to so we can see that. That is one whole. What if I colored in... What if I colored in 3 of those parts? What decimal would represent those 3 parts? Well, I know that is 3 out of 10. That's 3/10. 3/10 of this is colored in. So we know we can write our 0 and our decimal. And I have how many shaded in? 1, 2, 3. So that's 3/10. 3/10. That is how you represent 3/10. So a lot of you were asking me also the other day how to write that in word form. And we write 3/10 like this. 3/10. So when we get before the decimal point, we know that we read our period. We read it when we get to the comma. So I would say 1 billion, 1 million, 1,000. When we get to the decimal, we read the place value of the last number. So like this one, we know was right here. There was oh, y'all can't see it. There was a 3 right here. So we know that is 3/10. Or if it was 0, 3, we would know that is 3/100. So let's try this again with a different number. So we know that there are 10 parts on this, right? So what if I shade it in? What if I shaded in all of that? How many parts would I have shaded in? Pause your video and count. So you should have counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 out of 10 shaded. So I didn't get to eat the whole pizza. I only got 10 or 6 little slivers. I didn't get all 10 slivers. So I can't write it like this because I didn't get the whole pizza. Because once we go this way, that's wholes. Well, I only got a part, which is going that way. I only got a part of the pizza. So I am going to write my 0 and my decimal because I know that I didn't get any holes at this point. So I can just put 0. I didn't get a whole pizza. Sad, huh? And I know I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths of the pizza. And I can write 6 tenths like this. 6 tenths. So if I compare these two, which one is 0.3 greater than, less than, or equal to 0.6? 3 tenths greater than, equal to, greater than, less than, or equal to 6 tenths. Well, I look at my first number behind that decimal point, and I know that 3 is smaller than 6, so I put my 1 dot to the small number, 2 dots to the big number, and I connect the dots. All right, so now I want to look at hundredths. Now that we've looked at tenths, I want to look at hundredths. And this is we've worked with this grid before. This is a hundredths grid, a hundredths mat that we use. So we know that this whole thing is 1 whole, and we represent 1 whole by saying, like, that's 1 whole. It don't matter how many zeros I put behind it, that's 1 whole. What if I colored in that many? I want you to pause your video and count that many up, and then try and write it in a decimal for me. Okay, so you should have unpaused. So I know that there's 10 in every row on this. So I'm going to count by 10s until I get to this small one. So I know this is 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So I don't have any holes, so I put my 0 in my decimal. And I have 24 hundredths. Because this is my hundredths grid. There are 100 boxes on this grid, and I only have 24 out of those 100. So I have 24 hundredths, and you write that in word form like this. 24 hundredths. Because a lot of you are wanting to say 2 tenths and 4 hundredths. You read the number. Whatever number you see, you read it just like normal. Ooh, sorry guys. You read that number just like normal, so 24, and then you say whatever place value the last number is, and we know that that is the hundredths place, so we read it like normal, 24, and then we read that last place value, hundredths. Okay, so let's do one more. What if I colored in What if I colored all of that in? My marker is running out of steam, guys. What if I colored all of that in? I want you to pause your video, and I want you to count up how many squares there are, write it in decimal form, and then write it in word form. All right, so you should have unpaused by now, and you would have counted 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. So I know that I didn't get to have a whole pizza. So I'm going to put my 0 in my ones place because I didn't get any holes, and so I know I didn't get the whole pizza. Like I just said, I got 45 pieces of that pizza. So I'm going to say 45 hundredths. 45 hundredths. So that, remember, I read the number like normal. If there was no decimal point, I would read it just like normal. So 45. And then I read the very last place value. The very last place value, whatever it is. And it's hundredths. So is 24 hundredths greater than, less than, or equal to 45 hundredths? Well, I know they're not equal. So I'm going to look at that very first place value. And I know that 4 is greater than 2. So I'm going to draw 2 dots to my 4, 1 dot to my 2, and I'm going to connect the dots. All right, guys. So I would like to practice just a little bit with these cards. So examine the model and write the decimal below. So how would I write that decimal? How would I write that decimal? So if I counted it up, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 10, my whole is 10 parts. I am in 10 equal parts. And I only colored in 4. So I know I don't get any holes. I don't get a whole pizza. So I'm going to put, I don't get a whole pizza. Bummer. And I'm going to write my decimal. I only get 4/10 of a pizza. And I write 4/10 like this. That is how I show 4/10. Okay, let's try it again. So you know there are 100 squares there, right? So if I counted all of the shaded squares in, I know I have 10, 20, 30, 40 of 100 shaded. So I don't have a hole, so I'm going to put a 0 and a decimal because I have smaller than a hole. And I have 40. Now, remember what I said about zeros after the decimal point. Doesn't matter how many zeros I have. Does it change the place value? Does it change the value of that number? I hope you said no, because it does not. So if I was to look at 4/10 and what appears to be 40 hundredths, is that the same number? Remember, when you're comparing numbers and you only have one place value behind the decimal, you've got to add a placeholder so that you can compare them easily. So does that look like the same number now? Yep. So those two numbers are equal to each other. So you can even write this one as 4/10 because this 0 doesn't matter. I don't need that 0. Pretty crazy, guys. Okay, so today for your assignment, you are going to do, it's going to look like a quiz, but it's not a quiz. I'm not grading it like a quiz. It's just a normal worksheet. It looks like this. So it says, examine the model below and write the decimal. So just like what we just did, you will look at the model, which is just the picture, and you will write the decimal that it is, just like we just did with these cards. Then it says model 2700ths or model 9/10, model 6300ths. Well, to do that, you know that I don't get the whole thing. I only get 27 parts of it. So you're going to shade in your decimal on each of these problems. And then down here, you are going to take numbers and write them either in expanded form, word form, expanded notation, or standard form. So standard form, what I would do is since this one and this one's in an expanded notation, and this one is an expanded form. Before I put it in word form or before I put it in expanded notation, I would put it in standard form first. So remember, standard form is just a regular way that we read the numbers. So I would put it in standard form first, and then write it in word form, and then write it in expanded notation. Because if you don't, you're going to get really confused on what the number is. All right, guys? Trust me, because I get confused. I would have to write it in standard form first. So before we go, I want to practice something. I know I'm doing a lot of stuff today, but I had some people hop on Zoom yesterday, and they forgot how to write a number in word form with the decimal, and I guess I just didn't go over that good enough. So I'm going to fix that problem right now. Okay, so when we write it in word form, or even when we say it out loud, you know that the only time you can say and is when you see a decimal point. So I never, ever, 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 ever want to hear you say and unless you see a decimal point. Because that decimal point, its name when we read it, because we have to read it, when we read it, it is and. That's its name. That's how we say decimal point. We don't say decimal 24. We say and 24 hundredths. So do not say and unless you see the decimal point. Say it with me. I will not say and unless I see a decimal. One more time. I will not say and unless I see a decimal. Okay, so we start here and we know how to read that number. And if you don't, no big deal. You're just going to look at your period. So you know that this is the ones house. And you know this. And if you don't, guys, it's fine. We're still learning. Don't worry about it. This is the thousands house. So I know that this is it. There's ones, tens, hundreds, ones, tens, hundreds. Well, I know that's the 1,000ths place. So I know that's 1,000, because we read at the commas. 1,000, 723. And remember, we have to read the decimal point. Please read that decimal point. Please, 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 please. We read it by saying and. And that's how I know that after that and, that's when I can write what that decimal is. And so, when we're reading a decimal, we just say the normal standard number. Like whatever that number is, we're just going to say it. What's this number? Let me hear ya. 24. So I'm going to write down 24. What place value is that 4 in? You know that this is the tenths, and this is the hundredths. You're right, hundredths. So I just have to write 24 hundredths. 1,723 and 24 hundredths. Okay, we're going to try it one more time. I'm going to give you a number. You're going to pause the video and you're going to write the number in word form on a scratch piece of paper, okay? Ooh, I'm going to trick you. Let's see if that'll trick you. Okay, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to write that in word form. Okay, so you should have unpaused by now. I know this, ooh, I just wrote on my desk. This is the ones place, the ones period. That is my thousands period. So I know that this is 24 3, and I read at the comma, 23,152. What did I say about the decimal? How do I read that decimal? Oh, I hope you said it. And 6, remember after the decimal, I read the number like normal, and then I tell what place value it's in. And 6 tenths. 23,152 and 6 tenths. Notice, the only time I got to say and was when there is a decimal. Any other time, I don't get to say and. Okay, so like I said, today you're going to get that little worksheet. It says quiz on it. Don't worry about it. And you're just going to complete it the best that you can. Now, if you are confused or you don't understand this or you need help, guys, I'm here for you. I'm not going to let you fail. I'm not going to let that happen. Get on Zoom and I will do it with you. If you don't understand, I would rather do it with you and help you than you do it by yourself and get it all wrong and still be confused. So please, 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 please get on Zoom, message me on Canvas so that I know that you need some help. I love each and every one of you, and I hope that you have a great, fantastic day. Let me know if you need me.